what are we doing?
Make it make sense, Lord.
Yeah, like what are we doing? Because people can know the big picture. They can know that I've had cancer. They can know that I've had infertility issues. They can know that I've been paralyzed. Like they can know that's okay. Okay, sure. We all talk about those types of miracles. But when you start talking about being molested, when you talk about being raped multiple times, when you talk about being in abusive relationships, both physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually abusive relationships, when you're talking about being in car accidents that have burned the skin on your face to where you are almost unrecognizable, when you talk about attempting suicide multiple times, you sure you want to give people that type of access to me, God? And when you talk about the process, he said it's not about giving them access to you, it's about giving them access to me.
Thank you for tuning in to the Redefining You podcast. On today's episode, I'm joined by the lovely Miss Petra Pindar. She and I will be talking about trauma and how to thrive through those trials and tribulations that life throws at us. This is an episode you do not want to miss. Come on, let's heal together. Hey, you. Welcome back to the Redefining You podcast, episode 7. Woo, we in here. We doing it. It's 7 or 8. I'm gonna have to go back and look. Lord have mercy, but we in here. We doing it. And we've been consistent all season. We are back, ladies and gentlemen, with yet another guest, another gem. And y'all, this is gonna be one of my favorites because she's one of my favorite people. She don't know this, but she is literally one of my favorite people. But before we get into all the good stuff, do me a favor, go ahead and like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Our subscribers are growing. I'm so proud of y'all. So proud of y'all being obedient, but continue to subscribe to the channel. We want the world to know about all the good things that are going on here with the Redefining You fam, and share this with somebody that needs to hear it, because today we're going to get into some good stuff, some juicy stuff. All right. But on to our guests, ladies and gentlemen. I am joined by the beautiful Miss Petra Pindar. Hey, boo.
Hey, babe. How you?
I'm good. I am good, y'all. So let me tell y'all a little bit about who Petra is, right? So Petra is a speaker. She's an author, entrepreneur. She's a faith girl or faith influencer. So that's a very specific thing. I'm gonna let P kind of tell y'all a little bit, break down that faith influencer thing, because a lot of times we hear about the content creators and all these other things, but it's a very specific niche thing that she is rocking. So I'll let her tell y'all a little bit about that. But professionally, she's also an attorney. So she's very, very educated, very brilliant, obviously very beautiful. She is married, been in the game for 10 years?
Yes.
Ooh.
It'll be 11 this year.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So happily married and has 3 beautiful children, Jackson, Sterling, and Miss Everly. And they are just beautiful, beautiful babies. And yeah, what her ministry, her baby, is actually her nonprofit, Petra Pindar Incorporated, where she is basically equipping women to spread the love of God in their everyday life. So let the world know kind of who you are and share your heart with them.
Well, first of all, before I even do that, I have to thank my girl for bringing me on. She says that I'm one of her favorites. She's definitely one of my faves. I have said that from our very first connection. And I was like, we get along real well. Like real well. Yeah. And so it has been an amazing, amazing thing. So I'm honored to be here, to join you for this episode. And she covered all of the things. And she wanted me to talk a little bit about faith influencing, because she's right. It is a very specific niche, and one that I've prayed about because I didn't want to get caught up in the melee and the chaos of what everybody else was doing, of just content creating, because I believe that we are created to effectuate God's glory in the earth. And so that's a part of what I do, is that I don't just create content. I'm not talking about clothes. I'm not talking about just household things, but everything that I do speaks to faith and how to activate faith in your everyday life, especially your relationships, your friendships. And so God has given me that space to be a faith influencer, to encourage people to build, to activate, to sustain, and to nurture their faith for themselves. And so that's the area that I'm in, and I love it. And then I have Petra Pindar Inc., which is my nonprofit. But Hey Pretty the platform that has come from it has totally changed my life. My friend knows, like, this has been,
Literally.
yeah, like literally changed my life. And so talking about wellness and merging that with our faith so that we can live a holistically well life, because it's not just about being pretty on the inside, it's pretty in every phase, every level, every evolution of you. And so God has really blessed that and taken it from what I thought it would be to what it's becoming.
Don't he have a way of doing that? Like he just be like, okay, so I know what you thought. And it may not even, sometimes we feel like we misheard God, right? Because it's like, well,
Yes.
God, I thought you said it was this. I was like, well,
Yes.
no, it's not that you misheard me. It was that then, but it's this now.
Come
And this is
on,
what
come
it's going
on,
to
come
be.
on. That's it.
And I'd be like, okay, Lord, well, wait, let me catch up. I'm trying to catch up.
That's me often. That is me often. Are we gonna talk about this? Can we run that back one more time? And he's always telling me, no, we're gonna keep going,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna send you the people to help you do this. And he has, and Lynn is one of those people. And just honestly, just being a friend to me in this space, because it has been different. And I found that he's called me to be even more transparent in this season than I've ever been in my life. And to have people like Lynn who I can trust, who I haven't known for forever, but I can hand myself to her and know that she'll care for me as I'm caring for others. Because that's the thing, right? As a faith influencer, I'm pushing other people. I need somebody in my own corner
Yeah.
because I pour out for everybody else. And so to have these women who say yes to me and just being with me, not doing the things, but just being with me,
Yeah.
it has been a game changer.
And I think you said something very powerful, like your people, the people that are coming with you, because that's
Mhm.
been, I think for me, that's been like the thing, the piece that's missing. Because I
Yes.
have my circle, my friends, but
Mhm.
when I'm doing the thing, whatever the thing is, whatever the thing that God has called me to, it's very important to have your people. And I
That's it.
tell Pete this all the time. Any event that I attend for Petra Pindar ain't no team like PP Inc. And I'm legitimately serious because the way they cover her, like the way they cover P is unseen. Like it's a well-oiled machine. So you know that there's structure and there's systems in place.
Yes.
Because if there is no systems, the ship will sink. And I'm gonna just say that. It will sink
Period.
very quickly. But
Hmm.
P has, with the help of God and the help of her team, she has infrastructured such a beautiful team. And Hey Pretty is actually kind of where we started
Yes.
our friendship.
Yes.
Petra actually invited me to the inaugural Hey Pretty Day date. Before I had
Mm-hmm.
moved into this whole several day situation, I was
Uh-huh.
one of the inaugural speakers for self-worth actually. And
Mhm.
it felt so surreal for me. I'm gonna tell y'all a little bit because I didn't know that Petra didn't know that we had been in the same
I have no
vicinity
clue.
for years. I'd known Petra, known of Petra for years because I'm a bi faith baby.
Hmm.
But she didn't realize that, oh, you've been here all
Right.
this time. And wait, your grandmama is who? You
Hmm.
who?
Right.
It didn't even resonate. It didn't even
Mm-mm.
resonate. So it's so funny how God will bring people into your life years and years and years prior, but it doesn't necessarily hit then.
Right.
And now it's clicking. And I'm so grateful for that. I'm so
I
grateful
am.
for that.
I I could not be happier because I feel I can be a better friend to you in this season than
Yeah.
maybe then, right? Because
Yeah.
who we were then is a whole lot different than who we are now.
Yeah. Completely different.
Hmm.
Night and
Hmm.
day difference.
Hmm.
All right. So y'all gonna find out why Petra is here. The title of today's podcast is actually Thriving Through Trauma. And as I was prepping for this season's podcast, and I was, praying and asking God, okay, what do we want to uncover in this particular season? He would give me names of people, and then he would kind of correlate it. So he gives you bits and pieces. As I was in my planning phases, he gave me names of podcast episodes, but I didn't necessarily have a speaker or someone that could speak to those things specifically. You were one of those. Like he gave me the name
Yeah.
before I had actually read the book.
Wow. You
He
didn't tell me
gave
that.
he gave me the name before I had actually read the book. And the book that I'm referring to is Hey Pretty. And in that book, Petra, beautiful on the outside, Petra has dealt with her fair share of trauma, much like the rest of us. But it was so unique because, from my perspective, through my lens of living, what I see from you is you thriving. And it
Mm,
never resonates. Like, we can't see the trauma, which is
that
beautiful. Like, the covering that God has over you, it's beautiful to see because literally we don't look like what we've been through.
at all.
Not at all. So,
Mhm.
P, if you could just share a little bit about kind of your process into writing Hey Pretty, because I told her before this started, you was sharing all your business. And I'm like, oh, like it was
Yeah.
so eye-opening because you literally never know. You never know what people are dealing with behind
Mhm.
the scenes. So can you share a little bit about your story and just your upbringing, who
Sure.
you are, and kind of how you got to this place?
Sure. So you're right. We were both by faith babies, running like this, not really ever crossing paths. So that's where we started. So always been a faith girl, always been a church girl. Granddaddy a pastor, daddy a pastor, all the things, right? And with that, a lot of people think that you are very sure in your relationship. You also have no issues, right? Or they think the opposite, all church girls are hoes. Okay.
Yep.
That's pretty much where we fall. You don't
Yep.
get, there's no in between. And with Hey Pretty, the Lord, like I said earlier, He really has me in this space of being incredibly transparent because there are so many of us that are caught between trying to keep up the facade of either or and not really
Mhm.
being able to thrive as who we actually are.
Yeah.
Right. And that we've been through things, we're growing from things, and we're thriving in certain areas. And that was hard for me because my first book, Faith Goals, I thought was going to be my book. I thought it was going to be about my story. I tried to write it and I just couldn't do it. And the Lord said, it's not
Mm.
about you. This is about the women around you, sharing their stories, helping them to affirm who they are and bringing them into their faith. Cool. So that's what we did. And then when we got to Hey Pretty and I started to write, and I'll be honest with you, a lot of the things in it I haven't shared with other people. Um, and that made me a little nervous because I was like, Lord, you're gonna have me share this with strangers before I share it with even my parents, like
Yeah.
without, like how what are we doing?
Make it make sense, Lord.
Yeah, like what are we doing? Because people can know the big picture. They can know that I've had cancer. They can know that I've had infertility issues. They can know that I've been paralyzed. Like they can know that's okay. Okay, sure. We all talk about those types of miracles. But when you start talking about being molested, when you talk about being raped multiple times, when you talk about being in abusive relationships, both physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually abusive relationships,
Yeah.
when you're talking about being in car accidents that have burned the skin on your face to where you are almost unrecognizable, um, when you talk about attempting suicide multiple times, you sure you want to give people that type of access to me, God? And
Yeah.
when you talk about the process, he said it's not about giving them access to you, it's about giving them access to me.
Ooh, that's it, P.
Giving them access to me. And so it threw it makes me emotional because we sometimes we think about our story as our own, but it's really God's story,
Right.
right? It's how he's able to show up and be who he has said he was the entire time.
Mm.
And we allow people to see that through our own progressions and then being able to grow in what seems like a desert place,
Yeah.
right? Because a lot of times people look at the cactus and they're like, oh my God, that thing is so ugly. But if you really find the cactuses that are thriving, there are flowers on them. Go look at the pictures. There are flowers
Yeah.
on so many different little cactuses. And that's what I realized. And so it took me about 6 months to write the book, to edit the book, to pray over the book.
Right.
Um, but I've never reread it.
Wow.
Right. So whatever you're going to ask me about today, I'm just going to trust you that it was actually there and I'm just going to answer the questions. Because when I tell you I have not, I just
Wow.
haven't. I just haven't. And it was because the Lord said, I don't want you to go back and question. So when I say edit, I had, like Lynn says, I have a team that kind of reads through my things. And so they would say, okay, grammatically fix this area, or
Mhm.
you need to add something to this part. But I've never read the book again.
Wow.
I've never read it
Wow.
because I don't want to question what God asked me to do and
Yeah.
what he asked me to share. I'm
Yeah.
going to trust that it's found its way to where it needs to be.
So then that changes my question altogether, because what's interesting is that you mentioned something about the cactus, and I'm a very visual person.
Uh-huh.
So as I'm, thinking about this cactus, and you're very correct. There are cactuses or cacti, I think that's the plural
Cacti.
term
Yes,
for it,
girl. Yes. Because that
where
was,
they're out in the desert in this seemingly barren place where
yes.
they're able to sprout and grow and then bloom.
And then
And
bloom.
but what's interesting, what do we know? What do we primarily know cactuses for?
Being
Cacti for
prickly. Hmm.
being prickly
Hmm.
and painful and inflicting pain
And
on
inflicting.
other people.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
instantly, when you said that, I'm like, well, that correlates perfectly with trauma, because I can say for me,
Hmm.
before God began to restore and rebuild and break down and then rebuild again,
Yep.
this person that you see before you, um, I found myself inflicting pain on people unintentionally. I can say that.
Hmm. Hmm.
Even though I was very much, I had some flowers,
Yes.
but even amongst the flowers, there were still thorns.
Yes.
Even
Yes.
amongst the flowers, amongst the beauty, there was
Hmm.
still thorns. And there still are thorns. I'm
Yes.
still dealing with
Yes.
some of those things. And thankfully, I'm in therapy working through some of the things. What's
Hmm.
interesting is that before I went to therapy last year, it had never dawned on me how traumatic some of the things in my life were, because I normalized the
Yes.
trauma.
Yes.
And that's what happens a lot of times. We normalize the things. Oh, this is just a part of my story. And then we devalue it.
Hmm.
Like, well, I got through it by prayer and supplication, but let's put some practicality behind that. Like, how
Right.
did you genuinely get past that stuff? And for me, I got through it in a very unhealthy way. I masked and suppressed a lot
Yeah.
of what I dealt with
Hmm.
just to get through.
Yeah.
And that I did not find myself in a situation where I could say I was thriving. I would honestly say I was surviving through
Surviving. Yeah.
those seasons of my life. So
Yeah.
for Pete, I'm curious, like, what did you, when you went through your journey of writing the book,
Hmm. Hmm.
in the flashbacks that you had to have, the things that you had to be able to recall,
Yes.
was there one thing in particular that stuck out to you that felt like maybe you were not qualified or not worthy enough to be able to put that in your book because of some of the things that happened to you? Was there anything in particular that kind of stuck out to you? It's like, this is the thing that I just can't.
Probably the relationship issues. Because it's a part of what God has called me to talk about and to heal and to all the things, right? But again, I hadn't shared a lot of this with other people, right? So sharing, like, I had made some major, major, major mistakes in my
Yeah.
relationships. Um, and some weren't mistakes that I had done, but they were mistakes that I'd taken responsibility for, right? So um I'd been in an abusive relationship in high school. I hid that from my parents, but it was physically abusive. So um my ribs were damaged. I had bruises all over, but this person never marked my face. Like, so I was able to hide it. And yet here I am teaching about being vulnerable and being transparent
Wow.
and sharing the things, right?
Yeah.
Um, and how we have to remove ourselves from toxicity. But I was in that for over a year.
Wow.
And then going from that relationship to an emotionally abusive relationship. Again, 5 years on and off. um Going from another not even relationship, just talking to a person, and he was a very mentally abusive person who ended up raping me, and then feeling like it was my fault because I somehow had led him to believe that I wanted that from
Yeah.
him, right?
Yeah.
And so when I'm writing the book, I think that those were the things that were the hardest for me to share, because I'm like, I teach people the exact opposite of what I did. I stayed in these places. I made excuses for these people. I kept showing up for these people. I made myself available for these people.
Yeah.
Um, and then I walked away from really good relationships for these people. Uh, and so I think that that was the most difficult thing. And then you also have to remember too, being a faith girl, you're talking about having premarital sex, even though it was forcible. And that's not always given the way it should be given, right? I think you and I know that.
Yeah.
And guys can sometimes be given a pass that women are not.
Oh, for
Like, oh,
sure.
you must have been doing this. You must have been saying this. You must have been wearing that. You must have been, whatever.
For sure.
And that just wasn't what it wasn't the case. But again, it was the mentality I had taken on. And so
Mhm.
realizing that as I was writing the book, like you think that you're healed in some areas, but you find that you're actually not. And so writing it was very healing for me and very cathartic for me, because I was releasing the last bit of the infection that was in my heart and I didn't know was there.
You just said something that I was instantly thinking about. I wonder what that burst of let me just get it up off me.
That.
And that was it. That was
Mm-hmm,
it.
mm-hmm,
Wow.
mm-hmm,
Wow. My
mm-hmm.
therapist talks all the time about the importance of journaling and just getting what's in you out of you. Because a lot of times, if we don't get it out in a constructive way,
Mm-hmm.
it will it'll flow up out of you in
Hello.
a way that isn't quite as pleasant.
Period.
It will come up out of you,
Yes.
or ooze up out of you, because at some point you'll start to burst at the seams, or become undone. Sometimes it's not a violent outburst.
No.
You're not gonna go postal, but it's sometimes it starts to show up in the way that we treat ourselves, in the
Yes.
way that we carry ourselves. We can
Mhm.
become abusive with the things that we put in our mouth. Like for me, I found that was one of those things. Like I would eat to suppress, my feeling of, not being enough.
Yeah.
Um, I think I talked about, the very one of the very first things that I shared with P, or the Hey Pretty Day date, was just
Mm-hmm.
I felt like for the longest, because of, the things that my father did, I felt like I walked underneath the shadow of shame.
Yeah.
Just shame. And no one really talks about that, because shame comes with so many levels that it no one really talks about it. And carrying that as a child, I mean,
Yes.
my father has been in prison since 1999. I
Yeah.
was born in 92.
Wow.
So understanding that level of shame as a 7-year-old, and then it being cultivated and it festering and growing, it's a whole identity crisis, right?
Yes.
Because you experience, and you're embarrassed. You don't really know why you're embarrassed, but you're embarrassed. You're different. You know that something's not right, and you instantly feel the need to take responsibility or fix it. I was making
Yes.
breakfast for myself this morning, and I was thinking about this episode. I'm like, Lord, I always talk about how I didn't give my mom such a hard time as a child,
Mm-hmm.
but I realized it was because I didn't feel like I had room. I never
Mm.
felt like I had room to my daddy done enough. So
Heard.
instantly you begin to carry things that don't
Yep.
belong to you.
That don't. There it is.
You're carrying stuff that don't even belong to you. It's
I don't.
it's
And
so it's so layered. It is so layered.
it is. And I love that you said that, because this feels kind of like my writing process. Like as you're writing, you're reminded of things that you've suppressed
Yeah.
and didn't give full weight to, right? And so when you talk about that layer of shame, and I'm talking about the release of the relationship anxiety that I carried, right? And the
Yeah.
responsibility that I carry for other people's actions, I know that it stems from the shame of being molested when I was like 7 or 8, right?
Yeah.
And feeling and carrying that and taking it into my relationships, and always gravitating towards the ones who loved me or cared for me in a toxic way, because that's what I saw and that's what I felt. And I didn't tell my parents about those things. You know what I mean? So I think
Yeah.
it's just what you said. Like I didn't feel like I had room to say, that I was hurt in this way and I
Yeah.
needed help and I needed something else to show me differently for these other relationships. I just didn't. I needed to be perfect. I needed to make it right for
Yeah.
them. Like I didn't want other people to know that I had been in this situation for so long.
Yeah.
So I get that. Mhm.
Like it completely framed for me that particular experience growing up, knowing, the sins of my father and carrying those things as a child, feeling the differences in the interactions with adults
Mhm.
around me who knew, what had went down. And then as a child, like carrying that resentment for my father, not only for, some children, some kids, they get, they call it the daddy issues because
Yeah.
he wasn't present, but
Yep.
he was present and then he was absent.
Right.
And then he remained absent.
Okay. Yeah.
And for many people, that's a difficult to deal with on its own, but layering all the other knowing and knowledge on top of it,
Mhm.
it was a heavy, heavy burden to carry. And it made me look at God a different way because obviously my earthly father
Yeah.
failing me in this capacity, surely my heavenly father, they
Right.
they they're one and the same, right?
Yes.
They're one
That's
and
how
the
you
same
feel.
in a child's mind,
Yeah. That's
and even a young person's mind, or someone that just don't know.
you can't separate the two.
You can't separate the two.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's so difficult for you to separate the two, like the failures of your earthly father or your earthly relationships, whatever they are, whatever wherever you're
Right.
giving weight. Because I
Yeah.
will say this, before my father went to prison, I was very much so a daddy's girl. And one of the things that my mom and I, we laugh about it now because, cousins, they just kind of mean.
Yeah.
My cousins,
Yep.
my cousins knew, that my father was, prior to my father going to prison permanently, he had been in and out of jail.
Right.
And my mom, to protect me, to protect my innocence, she would say, "Oh, daddy's at work," because at this time he was at a work release camp.
Got you.
So I could go to
Okay.
my daddy's job. Everyone's wearing the same uniforms at daddy's job. He's working. He is.
Heard. Heard.
So
Yes.
she learned the art of reframing words real early.
We're
So for
early.
me to protect my innocence,
Yeah.
it was very so my dad is at work. And
Right.
then I remember one day my cousin was like, "Girl, your daddy ain't at work, he in jail." I was just
I
like,
cannot.
it's so
Ma'am.
ratchet. They are so ratchet. But it
They
it
are.
was the truth. It was the truth.
Right.
And my mom and I, we talk about it now. And we just, as I think back on some of the decisions that she made or what she felt like was protection
Right.
or was just covering me, it shielded me from truth that I needed a long time ago, right? But,
Yeah.
as parents, we try to make decisions that protect our
Yeah.
kids, whether they're going to serve them well in the long run or not.
No. Yeah.
And that was also another layer of trauma because that layer of not being able to distinguish God being a good God or a good father because my earthly father was not one. It
Right.
also tainted how I look at grace because I didn't give
Mm.
too many people nothing. I would cut somebody, my cutoff game P is unmatched. It's unmatched. And it's literally unhealthy the
Yeah.
way that I can
Sure.
cut off someone emotionally and
Yeah.
still deal with you. Because as a
Mm.
girl, as a church girl, you taught to treat everybody
Right.
right. And I can play nice in the sandbox all day, but my heart would be disconnected. So it
Mm.
kept me from connecting with people. So when I come to your events
Yeah.
and it's all about connection in the
Yeah.
networking hour. Like I
Yeah.
remember the very first event that I came to for you back in the 2000 and
2020. It's 2020.
yes, when we had on the green.
When you had on green. Yep.
We
That's what
had
made me
on the
remember. Yep.
green. I really had to push and get outside of myself. Not only that, because I was home.
Yeah.
So I even noticed just being in Gainesville, it felt heavier.
It felt heavy for you.
But
Yeah.
it was one of the first times where I felt like I needed to get outside of even if they know, Dree, it's okay. It's not on you anymore. It's not your fault. And that's a real thing, right?
That's real.
But I can remember just not being able to connect with people because I was afraid of being judged. What if they know? And if they do know, what do they think? And what do they think about him? But what do they would think about me?
Yeah.
They I could
Wow.
never separate the two. It was so heavy. It was so heavy. And for the longest time, I would carry that. I would carry that. And I could never really get to that next level. I would see a little bit of, gradual success and a little bit of gradual,
Yeah.
progression. Good
Yeah.
things were still happening around me. But for me, the definition of thriving isn't just to, experience good things or push through things, but it's also to find joy in
That's
them,
it.
right?
Yes.
I was missing so much joy. I was missing so much joy, P.
But how many of us have been there though? Like we're not alone in that.
No, no,
Mm,
man. Like
we're not.
the opportunities that I had been given to seek connection and seek friendship and to build relationships and to cultivate relationships. I didn't appreciate I haven't appreciated a networking hour within the last couple years. I've enjoyed them, but prior to then,
Not. Yeah.
I'll skip networking hour. I just don't want
You don't
to.
want to do that. Yeah.
I don't want to do it.
I
I
hear
didn't want
that.
to do it. So, P, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
What was your journey to healing like? Because I'm sure it was a long, long process.
Yeah.
But what was your journey to healing? What did that look like for you? Where did you start?
Well, let me start with this. It's not done. Okay. So I have committed myself to healing for the rest of my life.
Yeah,
Okay.
I
And the
like
reason
that.
that I say that is because there are different evolutions of Petra, and that Petra will also have to come to terms with the past traumas, the past pains. And she's
That's
going to do
it.
it differently, but she's going to have to do it.
Yeah.
Right. So, just what you're saying, to fully embrace the enjoyment of the growth and of the thriving, she has to fully embrace what has happened.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I've committed myself to a lifetime of healing because it doesn't ever stop, because I'm never going to stop evolving and growing. It's not going to happen. So I'm constantly healing. But where it started for me was when I began to really see myself, and not just see myself as other people saw me, right? Because let's be very, very clear. Again, as faith girls, church girls, you see what we want you to see,
Hmm.
period.
For sure.
I don't care what nobody says. We are the best. You're going to see, even if, and let me also say, even if you think that we're showing out and we're doing the most, we choose that. We choose to let you see whatever because we're bucking the system,
Hmm.
or we're trying to show you that we're bigger and badder than that.
Yeah.
We're choosing that. We're the best at this. So
Yeah.
no. like just go there. I just want to put that out, right?
I gave you
Because
permission
sometimes
to
people
see
get
this
that kind
side
of,
of me. Just know.
you know what I'm
If I
saying?
wanted to be sneaky and hide, I would. It's just
Because let's be very clear, we've hidden what we want to hide.
that's it. That's
Come
it.
on, come on, because there's a whole lot that Petra Michelle has done and seen that people still don't know.
Poop he covered
Come,
it. Oh, Lord
come
have
on,
mercy.
let's, if we're gonna have this conversation,
I
we're gonna have
mean,
this
let's be
conversation.
honest.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So there's that. So I really want to say that. But when I really began to heal, it was when I really began to see me, and to see me as the Petra that God had always seen. So
Mhm.
outside of what was perceived as brokenness, what was perceived as flaws, where I had able to productively connect, where I had horrible self-talk, when I was able to strip all of that away, and just to see that I was not only created with purpose, but on purpose.
Yeah.
Because for me, you talk about, was God a good father? For me, it wasn't about whether he was a good father or a good God, or whether he was sovereign or and all that stuff. Like, yeah. That's cool. That's cool. But you made a mistake with me. Like, you screwed up somewhere, and we need to talk about
Wow.
that, God. And that is what propelled like a lot of what was happening with me, and not not addressing that. But when I stripped everything away and I allowed myself to fully hear him, because again, these are choices, right? Because someone's like, oh, God has to split the sky so we'll hear him. God's talking to us constantly and in numerous ways, but we have to be willing to hear him, to really quiet the noise of our own thoughts, of our own inhibitions and our own expectations to hear him. And when I stopped and I stripped everything away, and I told him, I said, you screwed up. And I know you're a good father to everybody. I know that you're sovereign. I know that you've done miracles. I'm a miracle. But there's still something that you haven't fixed, that you screwed up in the beginning. And that was the conversation. And for him to stop me and to say, but I didn't.
Wow.
I was purposeful even in that. And it stopped me from killing myself. And it stopped me from feeling like I would never be healed in the way that I needed to. Because again, what I was focused on, Lynn, was the healing I wanted, not the healing I needed.
Yeah.
I wanted to be physically.
Two totally different things. Yeah.
Come on, say that. It's two different things. I wanted to be healed physically. I wanted no pain. I wanted pretty feet. I wanted, all these other things. I wanted to choose to have children, like all of these things. That's what I wanted. But the healing that I needed was mentally, emotionally, spiritually.
Yeah.
I didn't need the physical. That's a bonus. I needed this. And when he said that it was always purposeful.
Yeah.
I think that's when I began the healing process fully. And it wasn't necessarily easy because it took a lot. It took a lot. It took a lot of mind shifting. It took a lot of therapy. It took a lot of reworking of my friendship circles. It took a lot of transparency and honesty with my parents, because they were very good parents and are very good parents. But because they, as many African-American parents are, so let's also say that too, they clap for certain achievements and accolades. And that's what you begin to gravitate towards. And so you become a perfectionist, you become a type A child, you look for the acknowledgement, the acceptance, and the affirmation. But they were never given access to me or who I wanted to be or who I actually was, because I didn't know that, because I had fashioned myself after who they applauded for.
Wow.
And so it's a lot of healing on a lot of layers. But once God told me that the way I was created was purposeful, that's when it started for me. Because then it became, all right, if this was purposeful, I need to know how to navigate within this purpose, not the one that I want, but what is this? Because that means that there's a plan. There's a plan that you have in motion. This was all purposeful. Because I am a perfectionist, I want to excel at this. Show me this. Break me so that I am full in you.
Yeah.
Because that was the problem for me. Like, I thought that he had made a mistake.
Wow. That's so layered. So for you you felt that God had created you with deficit. And it made you you could only see yourself with deficit and not through the lens that
only.
Wow.
So when people told me I was pretty, or, oh my God, you do this so well, it actually, while I could smile and like, that's so wonderful, it would almost anger me to the point, okay, I got to get better, because they're not really seeing it. Like, they're just saying that to say it. I will never forget my aunt, one of my mom's closest friends. She had pulled me to the side and she was like, you're killing yourself. And nobody else had noticed that I had lost like 50 pounds. They were just thinking, oh, she's working out. She's trying to do exercise.
It's intentional.
And she's like, right. And she said, something is happening with you. And I was like, no, I'm just, I just need to lose a weight. And the way that it came was because people kept talking about, oh my God, you're so thick. Oh, we love that. And I hated that, because I'm like, that means I'm fat. that means I'm round. That's another thing that he made a mistake about. I'm the shortest in my family. I had the most hips in my family, and he's not fixing this.
Yeah.
And so I became bulimic.
Wow.
You see what I mean?
Oh. Mm. And now the version of Petra P that we
Mhm.
get to experience in her constant healing and her constant evolving, you are getting
Yeah.
to exposing that piece of you has allowed other people, myself included, to kind of lean into their own journey of, God, how do I really see you? Number one, right? Like
Mhm.
what do I really think about you? Because a lot of times we're concerned with how he thinks about us. Most people we're thinking about, well, what
Oh,
do
yeah.
they think about me? What do they say about me?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But we have to turn that thing around. In order for us to progress and move forward and to truly thrive, we've got to now put in the work and say, okay, now what do I think about you? And if what I think about you is flawed, then the work begins there.
There.
So that's the answer. If you are listening to this podcast and for whatever your journey looked like, whatever the trauma, and we've all got our fair share, and we don't got
Yes.
the time to sit here and break down every bit of it, but every bit of trauma, every mistake, whether it was self-inflicted or something happened to you, you were a victim of something. Now's the time, if you're going to thrive, and it don't have to be a grand occasion. It can be a right here decision right now. I'm sick of it, because that's when mine came. When I got sick and tired of being sick and tired, as the old people say,
Yes.
I had gotten to a place I was actually experiencing postpartum depression with my second son, Levi.
Wow.
And I had gotten to a place where I'm like, God, I can't do this. Like, my baby would be crying and I'm crying, rocking him. I'm in tears, sobbing, because he was a hard child. My second one, they tell me them second ones, they
I can
not
attest to
lying.
that.
They not lying. They're not lying. And
They're not.
I
Nope.
I don't
Nope.
know what it is. I don't
Uh-uh.
know what it is. But he gave me such a hard time. And it could have been because he was unexpected. He wasn't a part of the plan,
Yeah.
because I'm a
Oh.
planner. And you
Uh-huh.
ask me what I'm planning 5 years from now, I'm gonna tell you. In my
Yep.
fitness pal right now, I got what I'm eating for dinner and the snacks later. That's
Come on.
intentional, but I am by nature a planner. Okay,
Same.
so I got a plan and a timeline for everything. And if it don't fit in that, my first instinct is to blame, because I don't
Yeah.
want it to be me, and I don't want it to feel like I'm not in control. That's when I really started to go down the path of, okay, I look at you, God, this way. And if I look at you in a way that isn't truly your character,
Mm-hmm.
now is the time for me to learn,
That's it.
who are you?
That's it.
Well, first and foremost, I learned that he was love. He was the epitome of love. He's the root and the foundation of it. So every aspect of my life where I felt that I was lacking love from my earthly father, from the adults around me in my life, I had to then reframe, my mindset around what love is. And not only what it is, but what it looks like here in the earthly realm. Because there's an
Mhm.
eternal, there's an agape love. And then there's the interpersonal that we have
That's it.
between, our friends, our family members, our spouses. That love all looks different. But the love that I got to experience between Christ is the knowledge that before I was ever formed in my mother's womb, he died for me,
That's it. That's it.
knowing that I was going to live the life that I live right now. And
Yep.
that level of I choose you was what I needed. That was what I needed. I needed that acceptance. I needed that it doesn't matter what you thought you were. This is who I say you are.
That's it.
And until you start to turn that lens around and say, God, what do I think about you? And if I'm wrong, change my mind.
Doop.
Change my mind. Help
Doop.
me see you the way that you are and not the way that you've you've always been to me.
That's it.
Change my mind.
That's it. That's it. And that's literally where the scripture for Hey Pretty comes from when he sent it to me. Song of Songs 4 and 7. You're altogether beautiful, my darling. There are no flaws.
Mm.
And that's what I needed to hear. Because I thought, again,
Wow.
he had made a mistake. And he sent me directly to his word. And he said, there are none. It's purposeful.
Yeah. You know, so that's a good place to transition into the redefining moment. That's a really good place. So, you know, so Petra's last event was in February, like right up leading up to Love Week or Lovers Weekend with your husband or what have you. And in my journal, I think it was Apostle Gates. I think she was speaking.
Yes.
And she was talking about purpose.
Yep.
And one of the things that I wrote down, as I actually still have it with me, but one of the things that I wrote down as I was preparing for this season, because P knows I was dealing with a whole heap of stuff up until that. So that it was a push for me to get to that event to begin with. But I got there and I got exactly what I needed. My whole life. Got my whole life that weekend. I told her that. But one of the things that I took away, it equipped me to journey into this season of the podcast and just being more truthful and open, but also being more intentional in the leading and the directing to the Father, to the Word, so that we can, as faith girls, identify what the Father says about us. It's difficult to know what he says if you don't know what he said, right?
Hello.
No. The scripture for today is actually at the very beginning, Genesis chapter 50, verse 20. And a big old Bible here. So I'm reading from the ESV version, and it says, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives." And for those that need a little bit of context, because this scripture is specific to Joseph in the Bible. And this is immediately after his father has been buried and his brothers are terrified because he's like, okay, he's gonna get us back. For all the trauma we done inflicted on this boy.
He's gonna get a lick back.
And I can't say that it's so once you get into a place where you actually kind of like envision what this is, like a Tyler Perry movie. Like this was some mess. They sold their brother, their blood brother, into slavery. Their brother Joseph was the father's favorite. We don't get into favoritism at this time, but he was his father's favorite. He was.
Yeah.
And his father made him this beautiful coat. That's the Joseph of the coat of many colors. That's where that comes from. But his father only made it for him. Joseph was a dreamer, and basically he would have dreams and get to the end of the story. He had a dream that these stalks, that their bales of hay were going to be bowing to his, and he shared it before it was time, or maybe it was time. It was all a part of God's plan. He shared it, and his brothers were pissed. They were mad because what you're not gonna do is feel like you the golden child, because you're not. And what we're gonna do is throw you in this hole, and we're gonna tell our daddy that you did. So for all these, and then not only did they throw him in the hole, but they sold this man into slavery. So if that's not trauma, I don't know what is. But fast forwarding to this part, they come back together. All the things that Joseph dreamed after a boatload of more drama comes to pass. You know, the things that were symbols for bowing were literally his brothers bowing to him, coming to him in their time of need, because the slavery that he was sold into, he was now the ruler of Egypt. He was now the head honcho, the one in charge. And all that trauma that he endured was strategic positioning for that position to save the people that were coming to bow to him, literally. And that scripture, it was so confirming for me, because it helped me realize every single bit of trauma that I, you, we, the world endures, if we change our lens, and we look at it from the father's perspective, a good father who can't feel, who can't lie, we will be able to see through the trauma the area and the positions and the platforms that and the purpose and promises that he's releasing to us. We will be able to see him in all of it, even the trauma.
Even the trauma.
Even the trauma.
Absolutely. I think that when you told me that was a scripture, one of the things I love about it is we always talk about the end, right? That his dreams, the vision came true. But what speaks to me for my personal journey, and when I talk about healing at every evolution, is that in every area and in every season of his life where there was supposed to be trauma, he found favor. Every single one.
Yeah.
So even when he was sold, even when he was in Potiphar's house, even when he was in the jail,
in prison, right?
Favor, friend. Like there was favor in the trauma. Area. There was favor in the breaking. There was favor in the chaos. There was favor in the confusion. There was favor in the brokenness. There was favor. And so when we're talking about when the vision comes to pass, the question is, will you be obedient in the completion of it? That's how you get to the healing.
That's it.
There's favor at every level if you're obedient at every level. It's not about the end. It's about the process. Because the vision's going to happen anyways. That's done. But will you find favor in the middle?
Wow. And P, what would happen, like as we're growing, what do you think would happen if we were looking for the favor? That's kind of where I am right now. P, I get chills when I think about it. Because P knows she knows a lot of what's going on. And even right now, like, God, I'm looking for you. And I'm finding him. I'm finding the even favor. Because that's what we're looking for. Even though this is going on, I see you. I see you, God. It is so... I don't even have a word for it. I don't even have a word for it. When you can find him, even amongst the trauma and the chaos and the things that you wouldn't wish on your worst enemy, when you can find him in that, man.
That's it.
Well then, you know, see, every time we get on this, every time we get on this here thing, it's like, you know, that's why I love you, P. You bring out a side of me that I just, Lord.
Oh, girl. Oh my God. It's crazy, but I'm thankful.
Yes.
I am. Like I've talked about the same thing. Like I look for God in everything. I look for him even in the small details. It's even like in my house, I have a physical representation. I think I talked about this a couple weeks ago. Because my house is very lived in. It's very chaotic. I got 3 kids, y'all. But I make a point of always having fresh flowers, even in the middle of a messy, it's not dirty, but a messy home. I have something beautiful just sitting in the midst of it as a reminder that God is good in all things. God is good in all things.
I got my Mother's Day flowers right over there, but I might have to go pour the water out, make sure it stays fresh a little longer, because I too, like right on my kitchen island, I love to see fresh flowers. I love to see fresh flowers. I like that. I like that a lot. Even if it ain't Mother's Day, go get yourself. It
doesn't matter.
Yeah, go get you some. Go get you some.
That's it.
I love that. So Pete, tell the people where they can find you. And it's a lot of places. We might be here a while because she got stuff going on, y'all. When I tell you she is working and she is moving and she's being obedient. And from that obedience, she is birthing something so beautiful and so big. And I'm like, oh God, what else you gonna do? Oh.
What you're not about to do is make me cry all over again. So stop. No, ma'am. No, ma'am. So you guys can find me on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, all at Petra Pindar. And then I also have the Hey Pretty Life website and also petrapindar.com. But Hey Pretty Life has all of the courses. We have the Be Well Pretty courses that are coming. Lyndria is a course instructor for me. She is doing the work
Yes.
life wellness course. Y'all, I'm so thankful. So thankful. The Hey Pretty conference is also there. And then any other things that we're working on, go to heyprettylife.com. The courses are free. Conference is coming in February. So you want to make sure that you get those registrations done.
You really do. Y'all, as a matter of fact, you got 2 sponsorships coming from me from Redefining You. Yes, you do. Thank you, Holy Spirit. You have 2 sponsorships coming, and including me, because I'm gonna be up in the place. But 2 sponsorships are coming from Redefining You. So, and Lord, we're gonna look at the budget, and Lord, help me make it VIP, please. Thank you. Yeah, we're gonna be there.
Would you stop for 5 seconds?
Yeah, we're gonna be there. So, for those of you who are on this right here, right now, it's gonna be in Jacksonville. I'm sponsoring 2 of you. The first 2 to say I want in the comments, it's yours. It's yours. It's yours. He keeps doing it. He's gonna keep doing it. He's gonna keep doing it. Every time. Every time he's gonna keep doing it.
Lynn knows that like I have so many questions, you know? And so when I say that God sends the right people for you, he does. Because I don't know what I'm doing and why he's sending me to these other cities, but to have someone who would just
I don't know who's gonna be there, but you're gonna need the way that I walked away. Someone needs that level of refreshing, of renewing, of friendship, of reframing your mind around what healthy and godly relationships look like. Because y'all, when I tell you, it's literally nothing but love when you're in that place with those ladies. It genuinely is nothing but love. And I know it's because it's protected. It's a sanctuary, very specifically. Like they are very intentional with the atmosphere that they create. When you walk in, you may catch somebody over there interceding for the room before you walk in. And I'm literally not kidding. I'm literally not kidding, God. Guys, when I tell you he and her team, she's so serious about what she does. And she covers the women that are getting ready to experience it. And she removes P because as you know, Petra has already said she's a perfectionist. So even the things that P can be like, oh, I wish it was different. It should have been like this. It was perfect. And it will always be perfect because they remove them and they give God center stage. So 3 of them coming from Redefining You. I don't know who's going to be in the comments. Let me know. Y'all know what to do. Just comment if you want in. The sponsorships are yours.
Oh my gosh.
All right.
I'm so thankful. I love you.
I love you. Until next time, folks, we ain't going to hold you. We're going to let you go. We ain't going to hold you. But like, comment, subscribe, do all the things. If you know somebody that needs to be there, maybe you can't come, but you know somebody in Jacksonville area that needs to be there, please, please, please don't withhold this good stuff. Y'all, this could be the literal thing that gives them their whole entire life, that changes their entire life from them being in that place. So don't withhold no good stuff, y'all. All right. Thank y'all for hanging out with us on another episode of the Redefining You podcast. I love y'all. Bye.